Today, we're going to be talking about the 5 best pressing exercises for both size and strength. Now, for advanced people, these can't be trained together, but for anyone who's intermediate or a novice, this is definitely congruent and can be trained at the same time. Now, I'm going to go through 5 that I love, 2 that I don't love that are popular, and hopefully you can pull something from this. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please hit that subscribe button. And if you want to support the channel, check out the link in the description and in the pinned comment for coaching and for Lift Heavy Be Kind merchandise. Now, without further ado, let's get on to these 5 exercises in order. Starting with number 5 is dumbbell chest supported front raise. Now, this is very particular, but let me explain. Anytime we're doing a bench press, a incline press, an overhead press, we're starting with our elbow out in front of our shoulder. And we have to work to get the bar either back in line with our ears if we're pressing overhead, or back in line with our collarbone. And both of those require a flexion about the shoulder. To be strong in shoulder flexion means that you will have an easier time pushing that bar back overhead. Most people who lose a lift lose it because they push it in a bench press either straight towards the ceiling, which you should be pushing it back over your collarbone, or in an overhead press, again, pushing it straight towards the ceiling when you should be pushing it back up and over your head. In both of these cases, this is the most mechanically advantageous way to do it, but a lot of people have shoulder flexion strength as a limiting factor. And if you don't have the shoulder flexion strength there, there's no way for you to be able to work heavy weight back into its lockout position. So that's why it falls into number 5 on the 5 best exercises, pressing exercises for size and for strength. And number 4 is a JM press. Now, for those who don't know what a JM press is, it's a combination, or I suppose it's like if a close grip bench press and a skull crusher had a baby. Now, the reason I love these is for multiple reasons, but it's going to strengthen your triceps. It's also going to work on overhead strength of your triceps because you have to bring the bar up towards your collarbones, and naturally that is going to carry over to your overhead pressing strength. It's very, very heavy on the tricep, but is directly replicating your horizontal pressing, so it'll have a massive benefit to your bench press. The tricep, 3 muscle heads. Not all of those muscle heads contribute to the exact same thing, and this is going to target the long head of your tricep, and that's going to help you most when it comes to bench pressing big weight. Now, another thing about the JM press that I really love is you can load it up to an extent, but it's not going to be hugely taxing on the nervous system. So you can work in the 5 to 10 rep range and not feel like you've been hit by a truck the next day, like you might feel after a very heavy bench press or a very heavy overhead press. And it's just another reason why this is a great exercise. The last reason is bringing it down towards your collarbones with a close grip is going to get you that feeling of sinking your triceps into your lats. And if you can get that feeling on any overhead press or your bench press, this is one of the cues that's going to take that lift and absolutely blow it up. If we can get that sort of interaction between tricep and lat up in your armpit, it's going to be incredibly powerful for you to launch off. And JM press is going to get your elbows in the position to be able to do that. The biggest error most people have, or the biggest weak link most people have, is triceps when it comes to your pressing. You will see people who have huge bench presses and not huge pecs. You will never see someone who has a huge bench press without huge triceps. The only caveat to this is people who have a super wide grip, really big arch, and they're just doing a very small range of motion. Now, the problem here is that these people are just working in humeral adduction and abduction, and they're never actually working with their triceps. It's just purely a pec movement, which is a strong muscle, but if we can get more involved, that would be great. And if we can tuck those elbows in, and this is the key of breaking the bar, but if we can tuck the elbows into our sides, like I said with the JM press, we're going to get that interaction between the triceps and the lats. That's going to act as a springboard, and your lifts will blow up. Now let's go to my first exercise that I think is pointless for size and strength, and this is the bamboo bar. And I actually think that this is pointless even for rehab. I don't see a whole number of reasons that this should be included. This, for those who don't know, is a bar that's inherently unstable. You often hang weights off of it, and people will press with it, will hold it overhead, will walk with it overhead, and it creates a whole lot of instability. But personally, I've never seen treating 60 pounds unstable carry over to a 300-pound overhead press in the least. And On top of that, if we have load over our head and it's pulling back behind, no one should be comfortable with weight pulling back behind you overhead. Yes, we should be strong and stable overhead, but I think we should train stability overhead with doing actual overhead movements. My next exercise that I love, this is getting in the top 3 pressing exercises for size and strength, is a strict Viking press, is in no leg drive at all. The Viking press is going to control all ranges of motion. It is simply a hinged overhead press that's drifting away from you. So we're not limited by shoulder range of motion. We're not limited by stability. We're not limited by anything other than our pure strength. And this is going to get you into the right positions. The one thing I would encourage is squeezing your glutes and trying to stay as upright as possible. Try not to get a big lean back because we are working on pure pressing strength. But a standing strict Viking press is something that I absolutely love. Coming in at number 2 is a standing military press. And this changes. Several things change going from a Viking press to a military press, and they are listed separately for a reason. And this reason is that standing military press is going to have degrees of freedom. So we can go forward and backward. We can have the bar tilt. And it's not an instability to the level of the bamboo bar, but it's a greater level of instability where you truly have to control that weight. It's also going to make sure your left and your right are doing equal work. It's going to expose any imbalances between your left and your right. If you start pressing crooked or diagonal, it's going to expose any overhead range of motion issues, and you'll be able to see that under load, because ultimately we don't care about range of motion. We care about how can you move weights. And if you can move weight well in these 6 fundamental human movement patterns, then you've got the range of motion that you need. That's squat, hinge, overhead press, push, pull, and carry. Now, before I get to my number 1, I'm going to give you my second exercise that I believe is useless for building size and strength. And this is a seated machine press. The reason for this is we are taking out every postural control muscle, every bit of core strength possible, and we are taking every degree of freedom away, and we're just doing a chest press. So we're not working a full range of muscle groups. We're not working on anything that's going to translate perfectly over to a bench press. And this is why bodybuilders would kick the ass of strongmen and powerlifters at a seated machine chest press, because they have such muscle bulk that they can just grind out really, really heavy weight. But it's not going to train the skill or the technical aspect of any part of what you're trying to do on either a horizontal press, an incline press, or an overhead press. There's an argument to be made to say, well, isn't this going to work the same muscle groups as a bench press? Yes, theoretically. But if you work the same muscles without building the skill, you're frankly not going to lift more weight in the bench press, and it might raise your ceiling, but it's going to result in a higher injury risk while you've built up this big engine doing a different movement and trying to translate that over into a different movement where now the weight might be high. Will your soft tissues be ready? There's going to be more triceps involved in bench press than in a seated machine chest press. And there are a lot of downfalls to this. And this is one of my biggest pieces of advice to anyone watching this video. Do away with the seated chest machine press. If you know how to bench press, just bench press. It's going to get a bigger bang for your buck. And this brings me to number 1 exercise for building size and strength when it comes to pressing. And this is close grip incline barbell press. This is going to translate to your bench press, translate to your overhead press, build the tricep strength. It's going to eliminate any sort of range of motion issues. It's going to eliminate your momentum problems that you might run into with other machines. With the close grip, there's no bouncing it. When your grip is close, that is much more difficult. And it's going to work on your shoulders as well. So we're ticking all of the boxes here. It's going to build size for your chest, shoulders, and triceps. It's going to build strength for all of your pressing, and you're going to be able to do it in a relatively safe manner. That is my list. That is my top 5 exercises for pressing and strength. I'd love to know your comments. Pop them down in the comment section. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you have, click the notification bell. It would help us tremendously get traction on more of these videos. And let me know what you want to know more about down in the comments as well. Until tomorrow, lift heavy and be kind.